we've got some insight into the way supports are going to work in Overwatch 2 and a little bit of tidbit of information as to how they could actually be reworked. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the channel. So we've got another blue post here on the Blizzard forums, and it seems amazing to be saying this. There is yet another blue post. I remember, you guys will remember, back in the glory years of Overwatch, there was literally loads of these every week, and there was tons of, like, just insight into what's going on with the development of the game. It was great. Of course, Jeff was a major contributor to that. He's no longer at Blizzard and all of that, which is bad news. However, the new community manager has come in and seems to be posting in kind of a similar vein, asking questions to the developers, getting answers, then posting them on the forums. This is great because it means more communication, and we love it, and we get to see what's going on. Anyway, the big headline thing here is the rework for Brig. How is Brig going to look in Overwatch 2? Well, we don't get the full picture, but we do get one significant amount of information. So let's get stuck into this. There was a forum post which says, what will supports look like in Overwatch 2? And this is the response. I've been seeing this question pop up quite a bit since our post last week, so I grabbed some time with Jeff and Josh from the Hero Design and Balance team this afternoon. Here's what they had to say. So in response to the question, are there any significant changes to how supports are expected to function and feel to play in Overwatch 2? So far, we've not made a ton of changes to how the support role works in Overwatch 2. There are some meaningful changes, such as removing the stun from Brig more on her specific rebalancing efforts in the future. However, for the most part, the playstyle of your favorite support heroes should feel familiar and similar to retail. Right, let's break this down. So this actually is quite it's a nice little comment, this is. So the first thing we need to look at is they straight up say they haven't made a ton of changes to how support works in Overwatch 2 so far. That implies that they do want to make changes and they're still working on it. And also, you know, we can sort of look behind that a little bit more and say, hey, this probably means that Overwatch 2 is still a pretty long way away. You know, it's going to take a lot of time to lock in all of this stuff. Of course, we do know that Overwatch League will start on an early version of Overwatch 2 in April. So maybe April is the sort of time they want to kick off the beta for PvP. Who knows? But still, at this moment in time, they don't have all of the changes nailed in for the supports, which you can see as worrying. You can see as, I guess, comforting, because at least they're still working on it. However, the next bit we get onto is actually pretty major. So this is straight up saying that Brig's Shield Bash no longer has a stun component. Now, this goes in concert with the whole sort of way Overwatch 2 has been presented to us as having less crowd control, more agency on the specific player. Now, there's loads of quotes from Jeff Goodman. I'm not going to pull them and stick them into this video, but there's a ton from the PvP livestream where he's talking about reducing the amount of crowd control. He even talks about getting rid of flashbang for McCree, or completely remove, or like heavily reducing it. Now, the issue with this is if you reduce crowd control, certain heroes get a lot more powerful. You look at heroes like Doomfist and Tracer, which, yes, they did actually speak about last week, and I covered it in a video, where they said, look, we might need to nerf Doomfist and Tracer in Overwatch 2. Now, the reason for that would be less crowd control, bigger maps, less tank heroes in play. So it's only 5v5 now. It's not 6v6. Doomfist and Tracer have arguably got better maps to play with, more line of sight blocking terrain, because having one less tank kind of, it's a necessity that you have more cover to sort of play with. So it makes those heroes more powerful. So I think, again, you can read in between the lines here and say Blizzard are clearly worried about how strong Tracer or Doomfist could end up being. Probably Tracer more so than Doomfist, because Tracer has always been seen as the sort of pillar of balance that everything is balanced around in Overwatch, especially in early Overwatch, and maybe not so much towards the end of Overwatch's lifespan. However, in Overwatch 2, it looks like she's coming straight back into that slot. Now, there's one of the other reasons for this is tanks are actually quite strong. They do a lot of damage, they control a lot of space, they do soak quite a bit of damage as well. And when you've got one less tank, well, it means there's just more space, right, for those flankers to play. So this is where it gets kind of interesting to discuss, because if you remove the stun from Brig, surely she needs it in this 5v5 world of Overwatch 2, right? Now, there is a thing called the passive system. Now, this is where each role, so your damage, your tank may be renamed for Overwatch 2, but we're just going to roll with tank for now, and your support all have a passive ability. Now, if you look at the tank passive, as far as we know, according to the PvP livestream, it's a reduction in knockback. So it means if a tank gets knocked back, it's not as far as a standard DPS would get knocked back or a support. So if you get booped by Lucio and your Roadhog, you're not going to move. So this means that if you want to run across the bridge on Lijiang Tower, you can do it on Lijiang Gardens. You'll be able to do it, right? It'll be totally fine. You probably won't get booped off unless you're standing on the edge. But here's the thing, right? Why not just make tanks more resistant to crowd control completely? Like, just so stuns hardly affect the tanks. Because being stunned as a tank is the worst thing in Overwatch. It's so bad. There's too many stuns in the game right now. Blizzard know that. They are adapting Overwatch 2, it would seem, to combat that. But when you look at tanks and you look at things like Brig kind of needs her stun for dealing with certain things, right? So if she wants to push away a Tracer, she could kind of do with that stun, or a Doomfist could kind of do with that stun, because they can punish them diving into the back line, right? Now, I'm not saying this is the ideal way to do it, but I just find it interesting that the way Blizzard have chose to come at this issue is to say, okay, the tank passive is knockback resistance, not crowd control resistance, and Brig, we're going to remove her stun. But now we've got a problem with Tracer and Doomfist just doing whatever the hell they like, because one of the supports that could arguably deal with them no longer can deal with them. Now, of course, this does mean what actually will Brig look like in Overwatch 2, because they can't just remove... I mean, she needs Shield Bash, right? It's a signature ability of Brig. To remove that would be a bit weird. So are they going to change it so it kind of, I don't know, projects a shield out? We did see that in the very... If you guys... This is literally 2019. It's ancient news in this day and age. But the 0 hour cinematic, Brig and Reinhardt's barriers sort of join together. Now, that's probably something you can do in PvE, not PvP. But maybe in PvP, when Brig pulls out a barrier, she can kind of, I don't know, click a button or whatever, and it sort of projects it forward a little bit. I don't know. Maybe something like that, but we'll have to wait and see. Of course, maybe Brig will get other kinds of abilities. We just don't know. But it's very interesting to see that's the way they're looking at reworking Brig moving into Overwatch 2. Let me know what you think about this in the comments below. And guys, if you do comment, it really helps if you put a timestamp in. So if you literally type the time that you've like the bit you want to comment on, stick the time at the top of your comment. So if it's 2 minutes into the video, put 2-00, good stuff, and then I'll be able to click on it and I can see what you're referring to. It's actually a much cooler way of responding to comments. Anyway, we've got more stuff we need to cover. I'm wondering if that will affect the support's old methods of self-healing. Will abilities like Biotic Orb and Grenade and Regenerative Burst stay the same in Overwatch 2? Or are they being altered with a new support passive in mind? With the new support passive. Now, the support passive is self-healing. So this is what the response says. As of now, we have no plans to remove self-healing from these heroes. Abilities like Regenerative Burst and Biotic Grenade remain a powerful part of their respective heroes' identities and would be tuned to account for the passive self-healing abilities also available. Yeah, it probably just means you won't be able to heal yourself, I guess, as much with those abilities. Now, I would say, like, the comparison between those two abilities is kind of funny. Like, Biotic Grenade is a brilliant ability. Like, in terms of design, that thing is fantastic. Applies a healing debuff on the enemy, applies a healing buff on your allies. You throw it like a grenade, so you can do all kinds of trick shots with it. It's just great. It's so good. And then you look at Regenerative Burst, where you just press a button. There's no real visible effect towards its range. You just sort of glow a little bit gold because you're getting healed, or a bit yellow. It's like, great. It's a really poor ability. But it's there because he suffers from AoE healing, right? Okay? I don't know. Because his primary fire, or his secondary, or his primary heal, I guess. If you're landing that, it's not too bad. But, I don't know. Like, we just don't know what direction Batiste will be taken in, but I just found it kind of funny that those two abilities were compared together. But yeah, the answer is what the answer is. With less health bars to juggle, how does that affect single target healers in playtesting? Now, this is a good one, because this has been a big worry. Because if you've got one tank, is it going to be easy to keep it alive? Is it going to be harder to keep it alive? Is it easy to keep two tanks alive currently in live? Well, let's see what is actually said by the devs. In our playtests, having one less tank made it clear to us that tanks generally contribute much more damage than they mitigate, even on retail. Because of the drop in overall damage being dealt out, supports were actually too effective at keeping the entire team alive. So we're testing a tuned down healing output across the board to ensure that team fights still resolve in a way that doesn't feel drawn out or frustrating to play against. Now, that's really cool as an answer there, because what you're seeing here is actually tanks do a lot of damage, and if you don't have that extra tank in the game, I mean, You could also, I mean, you could also say that if you had an extra DPS in the game, there'd be a lot more damage and you remove the DPS. But whatever, let's just take it from the tank example. Removing a tank removes a lot of damage from the game. So it means there's a lot less kill potential on the field, which means that people stay alive if you've got the same healing output that's currently available in Overwatch. So in Overwatch 2, it looks like what they're doing is reducing the overall healing throughput of heroes because, well, they actually want people to die because you don't have that extra bit of damage. Now, when you think about this, it does make sense because think about the damage a Wrecking Ball can do or a Winston can do. Even on live, they can do a lot of damage. Like if they come out of nowhere and catch you 1v1, in fact, that's a good thing. A lot of the tanks can kill a lot of the cast in 1v1s unless it's like ridiculous examples, sort of like Tracer versus Reinhardt, and Tracer's always keeping him at range. Like there's no way he's going to win, you know, or like Soldier keeping Reinhardt at range, or I don't know, a turret Bastion just destroying Winston as he dives into him. Like, yeah, there's a lot of examples like that. But I think it's really interesting that the fact there's one less tank meant there was a lot less damage. And Blizzard here realizing that, you know what, tanks don't actually tank that much damage in our game. So let's just make them brawlers. You can see that from all of the stuff we've seen so far with Reinhardt and with Winston getting their new abilities. With Reinhardt being able to throw 2 fire strikes and cancel his charge. And also Winston having this sort of mini short range Tesla blast, which allows him to catch people as they're trying to get away from him. It's all cool stuff, right? And again, it's showing you this sort of it's like a shift in ideology almost to the way a tank functions. And again, like they're reinforcing it with these comments saying like, look, tanks, you know, did a lot of damage. We removed them from the game. This means that supports need to do less healing, and they're kind of testing that at the moment. So this is all good info, and we like to see it. It's good stuff, Blizzard. They were also asked, curious, will you be looking at damage as well? Since the addition of Baptiste and Sigma, the damage output has been much higher. And the dev says, I said this in a thread last week, but it bears repeating here. None of our hero design and balance changes for Overwatch 2 are being made in a vacuum. A change as fundamental as going from 6v6 to 5v5 has far-reaching implications that require us to examine every part of the hero balance and design. I'm pretty sure you guys said this in the live stream back in May, but is it true that Flashbang is being removed? Just wanted to confirm. And the response is, it is something we're considering. So again, this is in line with what Jeff Goodman did say on the stream, that they were looking at getting rid of it or heavily reducing it. They're still looking at it. They still haven't decided. So again, we can take from this that they still haven't locked in any of the crowd control sort of changes so far. Everything is still very much in flux. During the PvP stream back in May, I had the feeling that Zen and Mercy were played very often due to damage boost and Discord Orb. Is there a chance that these abilities are getting slightly nerfed? It was crazy to see how a Winston or Reinhardt got melted from a Reaper plus Discord Orb on them. And the response is, on paper, Discord is theoretically weaker with one fewer person per team benefiting from the debuff. Thus far in our playtest, Mercy's damage boost hasn't shown any major issues. That said, there's still a chance we end up tuning both Discord and damage boost down if we see they're causing issues in further testing. And finally, from the devs, I want to end on this comment because this just sums it up. Sorry, it's just there are rumors and she's being reworked, so I've been really scared about it. And the response is, rumors thrive and take root in the absence of information. You know, pretty much like Let's Go Dark for a year after we announce the game and then moan about people moaning about the fact that we've gone dark and we're not telling them what we're doing. Anyway, those times are gone. My goal in being here is to cut down on the rumor mill and to provide you with as much insight as I can as to what's happening. So this is good news, right? This is for the first time, you know, this is going to sound completely ludicrous to me. I've been covering this game for 6 years. For the first time in like 18 months, we've finally got some communication, really. On the Blizzard forums. Now, I have slated the Blizzard forums in recent videos going like, look, they're not the greatest place ever, but you've got to understand, like, Blizzard obviously want to use their own forums. They don't want to reach out to a, you know, I don't know, some content creator and go, hey, we've got a load of questions that we've had answered by the devs, or if you've got any questions. They're not going to do it on Reddit particularly. Okay, sure, they might do AMAs sometimes, but they're basically going to go through their forums because they, you know, it's their job, right? Which is fine. It doesn't matter. Like, at least we get insight into what's going on. So again, there's a couple of takeaways here. We've got insight into the Brig rework for Overwatch 2. We've got a bit of insight into the way supports are going to function, a little bit more insight into the way tanks work, and sort of reassurance that we're going to get more communication, which, as I'm sure you guys have seen, especially on my channel and probably on a lot of your favorite Overwatch channels, that content output it's difficult at this moment in time for the game because it's at the end of its life. And a lot of things that people generally did watch and were interested in watching, they're not really interested in watching anymore. So we're kind of falling back onto, you know, news and discussion. But we need that on Overwatch 2, right? So anything we can get in terms of discussion-based material, I think, is really good. And it lets us all talk to each other and work out what's going on. You know, we generally get close to 1,000 comments on every single one of these videos I've been making recently, which is really cool. But remember, guys, if you do comment on these videos, do put the timestamp into the kind of bit that you're referencing, because I think it would be really cool and much easier for me to go through the comments and check them out. All right, guys, thank you for watching the video. As ever, I will keep you updated with everything that is going on with Overwatch 2's development, and even if there's any Overwatch bits and pieces. I think we should be getting Halloween fairly soon, and probably be some decent skins for that there normally is. But yeah, all right, guys, I will catch you lovely lot on the next one. Toodaloo.